Olivia stepped into the sleek glass building on her first day at Sterling & Co., one of London's most prestigious marketing firms. At 24, fresh from completing her master's degree, she had landed what many considered a dream job, junior marketing executive. The building was everything she had imagined, modern, sophisticated, with an air of success that seemed to permeate every corner. She wore her best professional outfit, a fitted navy blazer, white blouse, and tailored black pants. Her long blonde hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and she had spent extra time on her makeup that morning, wanting to make the perfect first impression. As she walked through the lobby with its marble floors and contemporary art, her heels clicking with each step, she felt both excited and terribly nervous. The HR manager, Margaret, greeted her warmly and gave her a quick tour of the office. "You'll be working directly under our creative director, Mr. Alexander Hayes," Margaret explained as they walked through the open-plan office filled with busy employees. "He's brilliant but demanding. He expects excellence from his team, but if you can keep up with him, you'll learn more in 6 months than most people learn in 5 years. Olivia nodded, trying to absorb everything. She had heard about Alexander Hayes during her interview process. 32 years old, youngest creative director in the company's history, responsible for some of the most successful campaigns in recent years. He was known for being a perfectionist, incredibly talented, and notoriously private about his personal life. Margaret led her to a glass-walled corner office where a man sat behind a large desk, completely absorbed in his work. Even as seated, Olivia could tell he was tall. He had dark hair, styled perfectly, sharp jawline, and was wearing an expensive-looking charcoal suit that fit him like it was custom-made, which it probably was. His focused expression as he reviewed something on his computer showed intense concentration. "Mr. Hayes, this is Olivia Bennett, your new junior executive." He looked up, and Olivia felt her breath catch. Alexander Hayes was devastatingly handsome, not in an obvious way, but in that refined, sophisticated manner that came from good genes, expensive grooming, and natural confidence. But it was his eyes that struck her most, deep blue, intelligent, and intense as they focused on her. "Miss Bennett," he said, standing to shake her hand. His handshake was firm and professional, but Olivia felt a jolt of electricity at the contact. She quickly dismissed it. This was her boss. This was completely inappropriate. This was just first-day jitters. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I'm excited to be here and learn from you," she managed to say professionally. "We'll see how excited you remain after your first week," he said with a slight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "The work here is intense. I expect my team to be dedicated, creative, and willing to put in the hours necessary to achieve excellence. Can you handle that?" "Absolutely," Olivia said with more confidence than she felt. "Good. Margaret, please get Miss Bennett settled at her desk. Olivia, I'll need you in the conference room in an hour for the Morrison account briefing. Come prepared. I'll expect you to contribute ideas, not just observe." With that, he sat back down and returned his attention to his computer, effectively dismissing them. Margaret led Olivia out, and once they were out of earshot, she whispered, "Don't worry, he's not as scary as he seems, just dedicated to his work. You'll do fine." Olivia's desk was positioned just outside Alexander's office, where she could see him through the glass walls whenever he was there. She spent the next hour frantically reviewing the Morrison account files, trying to prepare for the meeting. Morrison was a luxury watch brand looking to rebrand for a younger audience, a challenging task that required balancing heritage with innovation. During the meeting, Olivia sat quietly at first, intimidated by the senior team members around the table. But when Alexander directly asked for her perspective, she took a breath and shared an idea she'd had about leveraging social media influencers in a unique way. To her surprise, he listened intently and even built upon her suggestion. "That's good thinking, Miss Bennett," he made a note. "Unconventional but potentially effective. Develop that idea further and present 3 execution options to me by tomorrow." The first week was a whirlwind. Olivia worked longer hours than she ever had, arriving early and leaving late. Alexander was indeed demanding. He would return her work with detailed notes, push her to think deeper, challenge every assumption. But she also realized that he did this because he saw potential in her. He wouldn't waste time on someone he didn't think could handle it. She found herself studying him when she thought he wasn't looking. The way he ran his hair through his hair when he was frustrated with something, the rare but genuine smile that appeared when someone on the team had a breakthrough idea, the intensity with which he approached every project, as if each one was the most important thing in the world. One evening, 3 weeks into her job, Olivia was still at her desk at 9 p.m., working on a presentation. Most of the office had emptied hours ago. She didn't notice Alexander emerge from his office until he was standing beside her desk. "You're still here," he observed. "Oh, yes, I wanted to finish this presentation for tomorrow's client meeting." He looked at her screen, then at the cold cup of coffee on her desk, then back at her. "Have you eaten?" No, not yet. I'll grab something when I'm done." "That's not healthy, Miss Bennett. Your brain needs fuel to do good work." He paused, then made a decision. "Come on, there's a decent restaurant 2 blocks from here. We'll eat, then you can finish this with fresh eyes." Olivia was surprised. "Oh, you don't have to. I'm hungry too, and I want to discuss some of your ideas for the Morrison campaign anyway. Consider it a working dinner." 20 minutes later, they were seated in an elegant but not overly formal Italian restaurant. Away from the office, Alexander seemed slightly more relaxed, though still maintaining professional boundaries. They discussed work initially, campaigns, strategies, industry trends, but gradually the conversation shifted. "Why marketing?" Alexander asked as they waited for their food. "You have a first-class degree from Oxford. You could have done anything." "I love the creativity of it," Olivia said honestly. "Marketing is where art meets psychology meets business. You're telling stories that connect with people on an emotional level while also achieving concrete business objectives. That intersection fascinates me." Alexander studied her with those intense blue eyes. "That's a more thoughtful answer than most people give. Many in this industry are here because it's glamorous or lucrative. Few actually understand the craft." "Why did you choose it?" Olivia asked, emboldened by his openness. He was quiet for a moment. "Similar reasons, actually, though I also like the challenge of it, the puzzle of understanding what makes people respond to one message over another. And I suppose I like building things, creating campaigns that become part of cultural conversations." The food arrived and they continued talking. Olivia learned that Alexander had grown up in Surrey, attended Cambridge, and had worked his way up faster than anyone in the company's history through sheer talent and dedication. He learned that she had grown up in a middle-class family in Manchester, had put herself through university with scholarships and part-time jobs, and was the first in her family to earn a graduate degree. "You're ambitious," Alexander observed. "That's good. Ambition is what drives excellence." "Is that what drives you?" she asked. He considered this. "Partially, but also, I don't like settling. For mediocre work, for good enough, for anything less than what I know I'm capable of achieving. That can be exhausting for the people around me." "It can also be inspiring," Olivia said softly. Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment something passed between them, an understanding, a connection, a spark of something that neither of them was quite ready to acknowledge. Alexander looked away first, signaling for the check. "We should get back. You need to finish that presentation," he said, his professional demeanor sliding back into place. But as they walked back to the office together through the London streets, Olivia felt something had shifted. She was developing feelings for her boss, feelings that were completely inappropriate and potentially career-destroying. She needed to get them under control. What she didn't know was that Alexander was having similar thoughts, fighting against an attraction that had been building since the moment she walked into his office. He had dated before, sophisticated women from his social circle, relationships that looked good on paper but never felt quite right. But something about Olivia's genuine passion, her intelligence, her determination, it affected him in a way he hadn't expected. He had a rule: never get involved with employees. It was messy,
complicated, potentially disastrous. He needed to maintain this boundary, no matter how much he found himself thinking about her after hours, no matter how much he looked forward to seeing her at her desk each morning. But rules, he would soon discover, were easier to make than follow.
2 months into her job, Olivia had proven herself as an invaluable member of Alexander's team. The Morrison campaign had been a success, and she had been given more responsibility on subsequent projects. She was thriving professionally, but personally, she was struggling with her growing feelings for Alexander. She had tried to suppress them, tried to see him only as her boss, but it was impossible. Every interaction, every meeting where he praised her work, every moment when he explained a concept and their heads bent close over a laptop, every accidental brush of hands when passing documents, all of it fed the attraction she was desperately trying to deny. Late one Thursday evening, they were the only two left in the office, working on an emergency pitch. A major luxury car brand wanted a campaign proposal by Monday, which gave them only 3 days to create something exceptional. The rest of the team had gone home hours ago, exhausted, but Alexander and Olivia had stayed to refine the creative concept. "What if we approach it from an emotional angle rather than specs?" Olivia suggested, pacing in front of the presentation board in the conference room. She had taken off her blazer hours ago and rolled up the sleeves of her blouse. Her ponytail had loosened, with strands of blonde hair framing her face. "Instead of talking about horsepower and technology, we talk about the moments, the first time a father lets his daughter sit in the driver's seat, the road trip that changes your life, the feeling of freedom on an open highway." Alexander, who had also shed his jacket and loosened his tie, looked up from his laptop. "Go on." "We create a series of vignettes, real stories from real people about transformative moments in their cars. It's not about the car being a status symbol or a machine. It's about the car being present for life's important moments. The tagline could be something like, 'More than a journey,' or 'Where life happens.'" She turned to look at him and found him staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What? Is it too sentimental?" "No," he said slowly, standing up and walking over to her. "It's brilliant. It completely reframes the product in a way that's emotionally resonant while still implying quality and reliability. Olivia, this is excellent work." She felt her cheeks flush with pleasure at his praise. "Really? You think the client will go for it?" "If we execute it properly, absolutely." He stood next to her, both of them looking at the presentation board covered with their scribbled ideas and rough sketches. "You have real talent, you know, instincts that can't be taught." "I learned from the best," she said, glancing at him. He turned to face her, and suddenly they were standing very close in the empty conference room. The office lights had dimmed to night mode, casting them in soft shadows. Outside the windows, London glittered with city lights. "Olivia," he said, his voice lower than usual. "Yes?" Her heart was pounding. "We should probably call it a night. It's nearly midnight, and we both need clear heads for tomorrow." But he didn't move away. "We should," agreed Olivia, but she didn't move either. The tension between them was almost tangible. Alexander raised his hand as if to touch her face, then dropped it back to his side. "This is inappropriate," he said, more to himself than to her. "I know," Olivia whispered. "You work for me. There are power dynamics at play. This could complicate everything." "I know that too." "Then why can't I seem to stay away from you?" The question came out raw, honest, breaking through his usual controlled demeanor. Olivia's breath caught. "Maybe because I can't seem to stay away from you either." That admission broke something in both of them. Alexander stepped closer, his hand finally making contact, cupping her face gently. "Tell me to stop." "I can't," Olivia said, honestly. He leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, but she didn't. When his lips finally met hers, it felt like everything she had been trying to deny for months finally made sense. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if they were both still questioning whether this should be happening. But then Olivia's hands moved to his chest, feeling his heart racing as fast as hers, and the kiss deepened. Alexander's other arm wrapped around her, pulling her closer. The kiss was passionate, but also tender, full of months of suppressed attraction and denied feelings.
When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "We shouldn't have done that," Alexander said, but he didn't let her go. "Probably not," Olivia agreed, but she didn't step away. "This changes everything," he continued, resting his forehead against hers. "I know." They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other's arms, both trying to process what had just happened and what it meant. Finally, Alexander pulled back slightly to look at her. "Olivia, I need you to understand something. This isn't just... I don't do casual, and I especially don't do casual with people I work with. If we pursue this, it has to be real. It has to be something we're both committed to, despite the complications." "I'm not a casual person either," Olivia said softly. "I wouldn't have let this happen if I didn't have real feelings for you. Feelings I've been trying to ignore for weeks because I thought they were impossible." "They're not impossible," Alexander said, a small smile crossing his face. "Just complicated. Very complicated." "I can handle complicated," Olivia said. "Can you handle discreet? Because we'll need to keep this quiet at the office, at least initially. Not because I'm ashamed, but because workplace relationships, especially between a boss and employee, invite scrutiny and gossip. I don't want that affecting your career or your reputation." Olivia nodded. "I understand. We keep it professional at work. In public, I'm your boss and you're my employee. In private? In private, we figure out what we are to each other." They ended up working for another hour, but the dynamic had completely shifted. Every glance held meaning. Every accidental touch sent sparks through them. When they finally left the office together, Alexander walked her to her car in the parking garage. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said, but he pulled her close for one more kiss before she got in her car. "Tomorrow," she echoed, feeling like she was floating as she drove home. The next few weeks were a delicate balance. At work, they maintained strict professionalism, perhaps even more formal with each other than before, overcompensating to avoid suspicion. But after hours, they began carefully building a relationship. Alexander would text her after work hours, and they would meet at quiet restaurants away from their usual professional circles. He took her to an art gallery opening where they could talk about the exhibits and steal moments of hand-holding when no one was looking. She invited him to a small dinner party at her flat, where for an evening he could just be Alexander, not Mr. Hayes, the creative director. They talked about everything, their dreams, their fears, their pasts. Olivia learned about the pressure Alexander had faced growing up in a wealthy family where success was expected, not celebrated. How he had something to prove, not just to others, but to himself. Alexander learned about Olivia's determination to build a career through her own merit, her close relationship with her family back in Manchester, her love of old films and terrible reality TV shows. "You watch Love Island?" Alexander asked, genuinely surprised as they sat in his upscale apartment after dinner. "Religiously," Olivia admitted with a laugh. "It's awful and wonderful at the same time. Don't judge me." "I'm not judging," he said, pulling her closer on the sofa. "I'm just trying to reconcile this with the sophisticated young woman who presents brilliant marketing strategies in boardrooms." "I contain multitudes," Olivia said, pretentiously, making him laugh. "You certainly do," he agreed, kissing her forehead. At work, they were careful. Too careful, perhaps, but the secret added a thrill to their days. The stolen glances across the conference room, the brush of fingers when passing documents, the knowledge that the stern, professional Mr. Hayes was the same man who had told her she was beautiful while they watched the sunrise from his balcony last Sunday. But secrets, especially in close-knit offices, are hard to keep forever.
3 months into their secret relationship, Olivia and Alexander had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. They were careful at work, but deeply connected in private. Olivia had never been happier. She was excelling in her career while also being in a relationship with a man who challenged her intellectually, supported her professionally, and made her feel cherished personally. One evening, they had stayed late to work on a presentation, and, as had become their habit, they were the last ones in the office. Alexander had just finished reviewing her work when she came to stand behind his desk chair, her hands moving to his shoulders to massage the tension she could see there. "You're tight as a drum," she observed, working on the knots in his shoulders. "Long day," he said, leaning back into her touch.
but better now." She leaned down to kiss his cheek, and he turned his head to capture her lips properly. The kiss deepened, and Alexander pulled her around the chair to sit on his lap, both of them getting lost in the moment. They didn't hear the elevator doors open or the footsteps approaching. They didn't notice anything until a voice said, "Holy shit." They sprang apart to find James, one of the senior account managers, standing in the doorway with his mouth open. He had clearly come back to retrieve something he'd forgotten, and had gotten much more than he bargained for. "James," Alexander said, standing up immediately, his professional mask sliding into place, even as his slightly disheveled appearance betrayed what had been happening. "What are you doing here?" I left my phone," James stammered, still looking shocked. "I just came back to get it. I didn't mean to. He grabbed his phone from a nearby desk and practically ran to the elevator. After he left, Olivia and Alexander looked at each other, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "That's not good," Olivia said quietly. "No, it's not," Alexander agreed, running his hair through his frustration. "James is a gossip. This will be all over the office by tomorrow morning." "What do we do?" Olivia asked, worried not just for their relationship, but for how this might affect her career. She had worked so hard to prove herself on merit, and now everyone would assume she had slept her way to her position. Alexander took Olivia's hands in his. "We get ahead of it. We're not doing anything wrong. Two single adults in a consensual relationship. But we need to do this properly." He paused, his blue eyes serious as they looked into hers. "Olivia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Do you want this, truly? Because once we acknowledge this publicly, there's no going back. You'll face scrutiny, gossip, maybe even some resentment from colleagues who will assume the worst. Your accomplishments might be questioned. I can handle it. I'm the creative director. I've already proven myself. But you are still early in your career. This could affect you more than it affects me." Olivia thought about what he was saying. He was right. This would be complicated. But as she looked at him, at this brilliant, intense man who had somehow become the center of her world, she knew her answer. "I want this," she said firmly. "I want you. I'm not ashamed of our relationship, and I won't hide it as if we're doing something wrong. Yes, it will be difficult, but anything worth having usually is." Relief and affection flooded Alexander's face. He pulled her into a tight hug. "Then we do this properly. Tomorrow I'll speak to HR first thing and disclose our relationship officially. It's company policy for workplace relationships to be reported, especially when there's a direct reporting relationship. They'll probably want to restructure your position so you don't report directly to me anymore." "I don't want to leave your team," Olivia protested. "You won't have to. You'll still work on the same projects, probably still sit at the same desk, but on paper, you'll report to Sarah instead of to me. It removes the direct conflict of interest." The next morning, Alexander did exactly as he'd promised. He met with HR and formally disclosed the relationship. As he'd predicted, they restructured the reporting lines so Olivia officially reported to Sarah Mitchell, another creative director. HR also required them both to sign acknowledgement forms confirming the relationship was consensual and understanding the company's policies. By lunchtime, the news had spread through the office like wildfire. Olivia could feel eyes on her as she walked through the floor. She heard whispered conversations that stopped when she approached. Some colleagues congratulated her, but others gave her cool looks or avoided her altogether. At lunch, her friend and colleague Emma pulled her aside. "Is it true? You and Hayes?" Olivia nodded. "For about 3 months now." Emma's eyes widened. 3 months? How did you keep it secret?" "We were careful. Well, until we weren't." Olivia explained about James walking in on them. "Jesus, Liv. This is going to be intense. You know what people are saying, right?" "I can imagine. They're saying you slept your way to your position, that every good assignment you've gotten was because of your relationship with him,
that the Morrison campaign's success was because he helped you more than he helped anyone else. Emma paused. For what it's worth, I don't believe any of that. I've worked with you. You're talented as hell, but people are going to think it. I know, Olivia said quietly, but I can't control what people think. I can only control how I respond, by continuing to do excellent work and proving that I earned everything I've achieved. That afternoon, Alexander called a team meeting. Olivia's stomach was in knots as she entered the conference room with the rest of the team. Alexander stood at the head of the table, his expression serious but not apologetic. I'm sure you've all heard by now that Olivia and I are in a relationship. I want to address this directly rather than let gossip and speculation run wild. Everyone was silent, watching him. Olivia and I began seeing each other approximately 3 months ago. We have been discreet out of respect for workplace professionalism. I have disclosed this relationship to HR as required, and we have restructured reporting lines to eliminate any conflict of interest. Olivia now reports to Sarah Mitchell, not to me. He paused, his gaze moving around the room. I want to be absolutely clear about something. Every assignment Olivia has received, every piece of praise, every opportunity, all of it was earned based on the quality of her work. If anything, I've been harder on her than the rest of you, precisely because I didn't want there to be even a suggestion of favoritism. Her success is her own. Anyone who wants to question that is welcome to review her work and compare it to the standards expected of this team. The room remained silent, but Olivia could see some nods of agreement. After the meeting, several colleagues approached Olivia privately. Some were genuinely supportive, others were clearly skeptical, but keeping it to themselves. It was awkward and uncomfortable, but Olivia held her head high. Over the next few weeks, things gradually normalized. Olivia continued to produce excellent work, and slowly the gossip died down as people realized the relationship wasn't affecting the quality of the team's output. If anything, Olivia seemed even more determined to prove herself, taking on challenging projects and delivering exceptional results. Alexander and Olivia no longer had to hide their relationship, which was a relief. They could go to lunch together without pretending it was just a work meeting. They could arrive together in the morning or leave together in the evening. Small freedoms, but meaningful ones. The relationship itself deepened during this time. Having weathered the storm of office gossip together, they had proven to each other their commitment. They spent weekends together, met each other's friends, integrated their lives in the way couples do when they're serious about each other. One Saturday, Alexander took Olivia to meet his parents at their estate in Surrey. It was a slightly intimidating experience. His parents were wealthy, sophisticated, and clearly had high expectations for their son's partner. But Olivia held her own, answering their questions about her background and career with honest confidence. She's remarkable, his mother told him, later, after Olivia had excused herself to the restroom. Intelligent, accomplished, and clearly not intimidated by you, which is refreshing. Don't let this one get away, Alexander. A month later, Olivia brought Alexander to Manchester to meet her family. A very different experience from meeting his parents. Her parents' modest terraced house was warm and welcoming, filled with family photos and comfortable furniture. Her younger siblings were curious and friendly. Her father was protective but willing to be won over, and her mother was openly delighted that her daughter had found someone who clearly adored her. "He looks at you like you hung the moon," her mother whispered to her in the kitchen while they prepared dinner. "He makes me very happy, Mum," Olivia whispered back. "Then that's all that matters," her mother said, squeezing her hand. 6 months into their public relationship, Olivia reflected on how much had changed. Her career was thriving. She had been promoted to senior marketing executive and was leading her own campaigns. Her relationship with Alexander was strong and stable. The office gossip had largely died down as people realized they were genuinely committed to each other, not just having some scandalous fling. But the best part was the relationship itself. Alexander was everything she could want it for. Brilliant, supportive, challenging in the best ways, and deeply in love with her. They had built something real together, something that went beyond the initial attraction to genuine.
8 months into their relationship, Olivia woke up feeling nauseous for the third morning in a row. She had been unusually tired lately, and certain smells that never bothered her before were suddenly making her feel ill. At first, she thought it was just stress from the major campaign she was leading, but as she sat on the bathroom floor waiting for the nausea to pass, another possibility occurred to her. With shaking hands, she drove to the pharmacy and bought 3 different pregnancy tests. She and Alexander were careful, but no contraception was 100% effective. As she sat in her flat waiting for the results, her mind raced. They had never discussed children. Their relationship, while serious, had only been public for a few months. They weren't even living together yet, though they spent most nights at either his place or hers. This was too soon, too fast, too unplanned. All 3 tests came back positive. Olivia sat on her bathroom floor, staring at the little plus signs, trying to process what this meant. She was pregnant with Alexander's baby, her boss's baby, technically, though he was so much more than that now. She was 24 years old, early in her career, in a relationship that was still navigating office dynamics. This was not how she had imagined this moment. But underneath the shock and fear, there was something else. A small flutter of joy, of possibility. A baby, their baby. She needed to tell Alexander, but she wanted to do it properly, not just blurt it out in a panic. That evening, she invited him to her flat for dinner, saying she wanted to cook for him. He arrived with flowers and wine, kissing her warmly as he came in. "You sounded mysterious on the phone," he said, following her to the kitchen. "What's the occasion?" "Can't I just want to make dinner for my boyfriend?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light despite her racing heart. "You can, but you're usually more direct. Come over, I'll order Thai food, is more your style." He studied her face. "Olivia, is everything okay? You've seemed a bit off this week." She took a deep breath. There was no perfect way to do this, no perfect time. "Alexander, sit down. I need to tell you something." His expression shifted to concern immediately as he sat at her small dining table. "You're worrying me. What is it?" Olivia sat across from him, reached out to take his hands, and looked into those blue eyes she had come to love. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Alexander's face went through several expressions in quick succession: shock, confusion, then something she couldn't quite read. "Pregnant," he repeated, as if testing the word. "You're sure?" 3 tests, all positive. I have a doctor's appointment scheduled next week to confirm, but yes, I'm sure. Silence. Alexander was processing, his analytical mind clearly trying to work through all the implications. Olivia felt her anxiety rising with each second that passed. "Say something," she finally whispered. "Please." Alexander looked up at her, and she saw his eyes were glistening with emotion. "We're having a baby?" "Yes," she said, her own tears starting to fall. "I know this isn't ideal timing. I know we haven't discussed this. I know it's going to complicate everything even more than it already is, but Alexander, She didn't get to finish because he had stood up and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "Are you happy about this? Tell me honestly, how do you feel?" "Terrified," admitted Olivia, "but also kind of wonderful. I know that sounds crazy given everything, but..." "It doesn't sound crazy," he interrupted, pulling back to look at her face, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "Because I feel exactly the same way, terrified and wonderful. Do you?" "Olivia, this isn't how I would have planned it. I would have wanted us to be married first, to have lived together, to have prepared properly, but..." He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "But this is ours, our baby. And yes, it's unexpected and earlier than makes sense, but it's also incredible." Relief flooded through Olivia. "I was so afraid you'd think it was too soon, that you weren't ready." "I don't know if anyone is ever truly ready," Alexander said honestly, "but I know that I love you and I want a future with you, and this baby is part of that future. We'll figure it out together." They spent the rest of the evening talking about practical matters, when to tell their families, how to handle it at work, what they needed to prepare. But they also let themselves feel the joy of it, the excitement of this unexpected gift. "Move in with me," Alexander said suddenly as they lay on the couch together. "Properly, bring all your things. Let's start building a real home together." "Your place is very bachelor pad chic," Olivia teased gently. "It's not exactly baby-friendly." "Then we'll find a new place, together, somewhere with room for a nursery and for all your books and for whatever else we need. We'll build a home, Olivia, a real one for our family." "Our family," she repeated, testing how the words felt. They felt right. The doctor's appointment the following week confirmed what the tests had shown. Olivia was 8 weeks pregnant, due in early spring. The doctor gave them the usual information about prenatal care, what to expect, what precautions to take. As they left the clinic, Alexander held her hand tightly. "We need to tell our families soon, before someone else finds out." They decided to tell their families that weekend. Alexander's parents were surprised but quickly adjusted, his mother immediately going into planning mode about nurseries and baby items. Olivia's family was more openly emotional. Her mother cried happy tears, her father looked slightly shock-shelled but eventually hugged them both. "You're not married," her father pointed out during a quiet moment. "Not yet," Alexander said firmly, "but I intend to fix that very soon. I love your daughter, Mr. Bennett. I want to build a life with her. The baby just accelerated our timeline a bit." At work, they waited until Olivia was 12 weeks along before making any announcement. By then, they had found a beautiful townhouse in Chelsea with 3 bedrooms, a small garden, and plenty of space for their growing family. Moving in together was both exciting and revealing, learning each other's daily habits, compromising on decorating choices, building a shared life rather than 2 separate ones that occasionally intersected. When they finally announced the pregnancy at work, the reactions were mixed. Some colleagues were genuinely happy for them, others were judgmental about the timeline, and a few made snide comments about her getting pregnant to trap the creative director. Olivia tried not to let it bother her, focusing instead on her work and her health. "Ignore them," Emma told her over lunch one day. "People will always have opinions. What matters is that you and Alexander are happy and committed to each other." "We are," Olivia confirmed. "More than ever, actually. This baby has brought us even closer." It was true. As Olivia's pregnancy progressed, Alexander became even more attentive and devoted. He went to every doctor's appointment, read every pregnancy book he could find, and started preparing the nursery months before it was needed. He was excited in a way Olivia had never seen before. This usually controlled, serious man was reduced to giddy joy every time he felt the baby kick. One evening, as they sat in the nursery they had been slowly putting together, Alexander took her hand. "Marry me," he said. Olivia laughed. "Are you asking or telling?" "Both? Neither?" He smiled. "Okay, let me do this properly." He slid off the chair to kneel in front of where she sat in the rocking chair they had just assembled. From his pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. "Olivia, I know we're doing everything backwards. We fell in love at work, navigated office politics, got pregnant before we even lived together. Nothing about us has been conventional. But I wouldn't change any of it because it led us here. You are the most remarkable woman I've ever met. Brilliant, strong, kind, challenging in all the best ways. You've made me better than I was before. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building a family with you, supporting your dreams and sharing mine. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Olivia said through happy tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The ring was beautiful, an elegant diamond in a classic setting that was sophisticated but not ostentatious, just like Alexander somehow knew she would want. They decided to have a small, intimate wedding before the baby arrived, just close family and friends, nothing elaborate.
They were married in a simple ceremony at a historic manor in the country, with Olivia 6 months pregnant and absolutely radiant in a flowing white dress that accommodated her growing belly. As they exchanged vows, Olivia thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that first day when she nervously walked into his office, to their first kiss in the conference room, to this moment, becoming a family. "I love you," Alexander whispered as they were pronounced husband and wife. "I love you too. Both of you," she whispered back, placing his hand on her belly where their baby was kicking.
3 months after their quiet wedding, on a cold March morning, Olivia went into labor. Alexander, who had been anxiously checking his watch every few minutes for the past week, immediately shifted into focused mode, grabbing the hospital bag they had packed weeks ago, helping Olivia to the car, calling her parents and his to let them know it was time. "You've got this," he told her during a particularly strong contraction as they drove to the hospital. "You're the strongest person I know." "Easy for you to say," she gasped. "You're not the one pushing a human out of your body." He squeezed her hand. "I know, and I'm in awe of you." The labor was long. 16 hours of contractions, breathing exercises, pain, exhaustion, and moments where Olivia was convinced she couldn't do this. But Alexander never left her side, holding her hand, encouraging her, being exactly the support she needed. Finally, at 3:47 a.m., their baby entered the world with a healthy, loud cry. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing the baby on Olivia's chest. "Congratulations." Olivia looked down at the tiny, perfect human in her arms, their daughter, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that would probably turn the same blue as her father's. She was overwhelmed with love so intense it almost hurt. "She's perfect," Alexander whispered, his voice thick with emotion as he looked at his wife and daughter. "You're both perfect." They named her Isabel Grace Hayes. Isabel for Alexander's grandmother, Grace for Olivia's mother. Bella for short. The first few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and learning to navigate parenthood together. Their beautiful Chelsea townhouse became filled with baby equipment, the sound of crying and cooing, and a joy they had never quite imagined. Olivia took maternity leave from work, but she and Alexander had already discussed their plan. She would return part-time after 6 months, and they would hire a nanny to help while they were both working. They were fortunate to have the resources to make it work, and Alexander was determined that Olivia's career wouldn't suffer because of motherhood. "You've worked too hard to build your career," he told her one night as they both sat exhausted in the nursery after finally getting Bella to sleep. "I want to support you in continuing it, not giving it up." "Thank you," she said, leaning against him. "Though right now, the idea of constructing a coherent marketing strategy seems impossible when I can't even remember if I ate lunch today." He laughed quietly. "It gets easier, or so everyone keeps telling us." It did get easier, gradually. Bella settled into a routine, they figured out the rhythm of parenting, and slowly their life found a new normal. Alexander, who had always been dedicated to his work, discovered that he could be just as dedicated to his family. He left work on time to help with bedtime, he took paternity leave to bond with his daughter, and he turned down projects that would require extensive travel. "You've changed," his business partner remarked one day. "In a good way. You seem happier, more balanced." "I am," Alexander agreed, looking at the photo on his desk of Olivia and Bella. "I finally figured out what actually matters." When Olivia returned to work part-time after 6 months, it was with a new perspective. She was still ambitious, still driven, still excellent at her job, but she also had new priorities and a different definition of success. Work was important, but it wasn't everything. Her family was everything. She and Alexander had found a beautiful balance, supporting each other's careers while also being present parents to Bella. They made it work through careful scheduling, good communication, and genuine partnership. 1 year after Bella's birth, on a Saturday afternoon, they had a quiet moment together while Bella napped. They sat in their living room, surrounded by baby toys and the comfortable chaos of family life, and reflected on how far they had come. "Do you remember that first day, when I walked into your office terrified and trying to look confident? I remember thinking you were going to be trouble," Alexander said with a smile.
I had no idea how right I was. Good trouble, though? The best trouble, he confirmed, pulling her close. You completely upended my carefully controlled life, challenged everything I thought I wanted, and gave me everything I didn't know I needed. We did kind of do everything backwards, Olivia mused. Boss and employee, secret relationship, office scandal, pregnancy, then marriage. Backwards, forwards, sideways, doesn't matter. We got to where we were meant to be. Look at this life we've built, Olivia. It's messy and chaotic and nothing like I would have planned. It's also absolutely perfect. From the baby monitor, they heard Bella starting to wake up, making the soft sounds that would soon turn into demands for attention. I'll get her, they both said simultaneously, then laughed. Together? Olivia suggested. Together, Alexander agreed. As they climbed the stairs to the nursery together, Olivia reflected on their journey. Yes, they had faced judgment and complications. Yes, they had done things in an unconventional order, but they had also found real love, built a real partnership, and created a real family. She had walked into Alexander Hayes' office just over 2 years ago as an ambitious but uncertain young professional. Now she was a wife, a mother, and still that ambitious professional, just with a much richer, fuller life than she ever could have imagined. Bella was sitting up in her crib when they entered, her face breaking into a huge smile when she saw her parents. That same smile that had both of them wrapped completely around her tiny finger from the moment she was born. "Hello, beautiful girl," Olivia said, lifting her daughter into her arms. Alexander wrapped his arms around both of them, his family, his whole world. "Perfect," he murmured. "Absolutely perfect." And it was. Not perfect in the sense of flawless or without challenges. They still had struggles, disagreements, exhausting days, and moments of doubt, like any couple. But perfect in the sense that it was theirs, built on real love, genuine partnership, and shared commitment to building a life together. Sometimes the best stories don't follow the expected path. Sometimes they start in the most unlikely places, like a boss's office on a nervous first day at work, and lead to the most unexpected destinations. Sometimes doing everything backwards leads you exactly where you are always meant to be. As Olivia watched Alexander make funny faces at Bella, making their daughter giggle with pure joy, she knew she wouldn't change a single thing about their unconventional journey. Because every unexpected turn, every complication, every moment of uncertainty had led them here, to this beautiful, messy, perfect life they had built together.